Recording in progress.
How are we doing there, Travis? Okay, here we go. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West Hollywood Jewish Community Candidate Forum for the 2022 City Council elections here in West Hollywood. We are live in person and also streaming online, so welcome to everybody online. We're so happy you're here with us. Our congregation, Kol Ami, is celebrating our 30th anniversary this year as West Hollywood's Reformed Synagogue, and we've always had a history of being involved in the civic life of our community. We invite your interest and your participation in our many activities, including on this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. We're making lunches for the homeless. Anybody's welcome to join us. We work with the Hollywood Food Coalition, which got its start right here in West Hollywood. We're proud to co-host this special event with our partners, the Israeli American Civic Action Network. We've done a lot of programming with ICANN, including the 2020 Jewish Community Forum for the City Council election. So we're glad to be in person now at this time. And we both share concerns. Our synagogue and the Israeli American community are very concerned with the issues of rising hate and anti-Semitism. Jewish immigrant communities like the Israeli American community, the Persian Jewish community, are especially vulnerable. And we're eager to learn more from these candidates and how they intend to address these growing threats. So tonight we are so glad to have 9 of our 12 candidates with us. And we are so thrilled that tonight is hosted and moderated by LA's own Elsa Ramon. Elsa, welcome. Elsa's been a news anchor since 1998, covering local news in both Phoenix, Dallas, and most recently at CBS Los Angeles. Elsa, we're so glad you're here with us moderating this important evening. And so with that, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to be here tonight and be a part of a very important forum for West Hollywood. Just a little bit of background. I have 2 children. They are the great-grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. Zadie is no longer with us and did not get to meet my son before he was born. He's 9 now, but Bubby is still alive and with us, so we're thankful for that. I'm thankful to have 2 very healthy children who are being raised in a Jewish household. So thank you for letting me be part of this special forum tonight. So let's get down to the ground rules for the candidates. The forum is divided tonight into 2 main topics, and those 2 main topics are each going to have 2 questions. The first topic is about public safety and anti-Semitism, and the second is Israel and West Hollywood's Jewish community. As Rabbi Egger said, we have 9 candidates here tonight. There are a total of 12 candidates. Unfortunately, 3 of them could not be with us tonight. So each of you will have a minute and a half to answer each question when it is posed to you. And by the way, just want to let everyone know for the record, none of the questions were submitted for approval by the candidates or their campaigns. So this is the first everyone is hearing of them tonight. I do have a few rules for the audience, not just the candidates tonight. We ask our in-person audience tonight, first of all, welcome. Thank you for being here. It's been a long time since we've been able to do something like this in person, so thank you so much for being here. With that being said, we do have just a few rules. We would like the audience to be primarily silent, which means during the time the candidates are speaking about their positions on the topics, we can't have any boos, hisses, if you hiss, finger snaps or claps to distract the candidates, no cheering, anything of that sort. We want to keep it extremely neutral, and we want to make sure the candidates are able to completely focus on their platforms while they're here tonight. But I will make one exception, and that is right now, you are able to welcome all of the 2022 West Hollywood City Council candidates here with us tonight. Rabbi Eger, thank you again so much for having me here tonight. So, and candidates, by the way, thank you for taking the time tonight to be with us. We did want to note, again, there are 12 candidates, 9 here tonight. There are 3 open spots on the West Hollywood City Council, so there is a lot of competition tonight. Before we jump into the first topic, I will allow all of you to introduce yourselves. You'll be able to have opening statements and closing statements. For the opening statement, we are going to go in ballot order, and you will have 1 minute to talk about yourself and where you stand on the issues. And we are going to go in candidate order, which means we are starting with Mr. John Duran.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Rabbi, for opening up the temple. My name is John Duran. I'm a native Angelino. I've lived now in the city of West Hollywood for 30 years. I served on the council for 20 years, from 2001 to 2020. I'm running again because I think for the last 2 years, the city has been seriously off track, in a very serious way that's threatening to all of us. I'm happy to tell you that as of today, I've been endorsed by the Los Angeles County Sheriff Deputies, the Los Angeles County Firefighters, the Chamber of Commerce, and just 3 days ago, Democrats for Israel also endorsed me, and I'm happy and proud to have their endorsement as well. I think what I bring to the council historically is just some common sense and practical ideas. And I'm not really long on ideology or theory. I'm really a little bit more about how do we execute on any idea. So I hope by the end of tonight that you're either considering voting for me or that you will vote for me on November the 8th. And thank you again for hosting us tonight.
Thank you, John. Next, we have Ms. Chelsea Byers.
Good evening. It's great to be back here at Kol Ami. Thank you so much, Rabbi. My name is Chelsea Byers. I grew up in a secular home in Arizona. I worried all the time as a kid. My parents both dealt with substance use disorder issues. My mom openly struggled with domestic violence trauma before my dad's time. And my dad's work in construction, well, he was just not a very open communicator. Coming from that household without health care, a college fund, a life savings, retirement plans, I was drawn into community organizing from a very early age, about halfway through high school, focusing on issues of economic disparity, LGBTQ inclusion, education, and anti-war activism. I wanted all people to have access to life-affirming resources, and I knew from a very early age my life would be committed to that type of work. Anyone who starts very young grows tremendously if they keep up with that work, as I have, as an advocate, as an activist, and as a human being. I've maintained a commitment to growth and sustainability because in the political world, we know misunderstandings can lead to fear and hatred, and there are always folks who work to tear us down. I'm really glad to be able to share more of my platform tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chelsea. Next, Jordan Cockram.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for hosting this tonight. My name is Jordan Cockram. I was born and raised in Minnesota, and I went to college there. I was a finance major, but kind of last minute, I decided I wasn't going to pursue a job in finance, and I was trying to think of what I loved and what I enjoyed, and I thought that might be entertainment, so I decided to move to LA. I didn't have a job, I didn't know anyone, so I just went on Craigslist and looked kind of in the center of the city and found an apartment, and it turned out to be in this awesome city called West Hollywood. I've been here for almost a decade now, and when I first moved here, West Hollywood is so welcoming to me and made me feel like I was at home, and that's why I've stayed here for so long. Over the last 2 years, though, that has felt like it's changing due to a lot of the decisions that the city council's making. Crime is going up, homelessness is going up, and the current council isn't making, I think, good decisions to help fix those issues, so that's why I'm running to help address those. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jordan. Next, we have Robert Oliver.
That's what I thought. Thank you. I'm Robert Oliver, and I'm running for West Hollywood City Council. Together, I think that we can combat anti-Semitism and make West Hollywood safe. I was raised in LA. I moved to West Hollywood about a decade ago, and I'm proudly Jewish. If you can't tell, I'm wearing a yarmulke, because to me, when I grew up, you always wear a yarmulke in a synagogue. I've dedicated years of my life to public service. As an LA City Council deputy, I worked to provide security resources to the Jewish community. I worked for the Jewish Federation to combat BDS, and as a public safety commissioner, I introduced the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, which was later adopted by the City Council. I serve on the board of a Jewish nonprofit here in West Hollywood, and I can say that one of my proudest moments in life was getting married atop the mountain overlooking the Dead Sea in Israel to my husband, Mark, who's here tonight. It wasn't a very religious ceremony, but one psalm that we did recite was Im Eshkachek Yerushalayim. If I'm... well, I hope I can earn your vote. We'll go into more detail on other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Next, Ben Savage.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here. Thank you, Rabbi Egger. Thank you, Dylan, for arranging this important conversation. I grew up in Los Angeles. I've lived in West Hollywood for 18 years. I love this community, and I'm running because there are serious issues facing West Hollywood. In the field of public safety, I have neighbors that live on my street in my neighborhood that are scared to leave their houses at night. I'm supporting local and small businesses because local businesses have expressed to me that they feel under attack from the city. The first thing I heard when I started running was a local businessman told me, why do they hate us? So I'm running to protect small businesses. I want to build and work towards more affordable housing for the city so that people that work here and that play here also have the opportunity to live here. I think it's important to also make sure that we protect renters' rights so that our seniors are allowed to age in place and so that we protect the people that live here and make sure that they can all be part of this wonderful city that we call home. I'm so happy to be here, and I look forward to this important conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Next, we have Mr. Steve Martin.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Martin. I've lived in the city since 1979, and I'm running for city council again. I served on the council from 94 to 2003, and frankly, it was one of the most productive times in the city's history. When I initially got involved in the cityhood movement, I didn't really think that I was going to be involved 40 years later. But a few years after we incorporated, the city decided to build a civic center in West Hollywood Park, and I got involved in that because I felt it was important to preserve green space. And from there, I just continued to stay involved, and I got involved in the Democratic Party. I served as president of Stonewall Democratic Club during the height of the AIDS crisis. I was elected as a delegate to the presidential convention in 1998. But I've just always been connected with West Hollywood, and I've always felt it was important to give a voice, whether I was on the council or off the council. And I am a community organizer, and I have spent a lot of time organizing our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Next, we have Mayor Lauren Meister.
Thank you, thank you, Kol Ami. Appreciate the time to be here. I'm Lauren Meister. I'm a council member since 2015. I started out a neighborhood advocate, actually handing out newsletters on my block as a neighborhood watch captain, then grew into being a neighborhood leader where I learned everything there is to know about parking issues, traffic issues, development issues, you name it, public safety issues. And that's really where my journey as a public servant started, then ended up on Public Safety Commission, Planning Commission, and eventually was elected to West Hollywood City Council. My priorities are public safety, working on homelessness, and protecting our rent-stabilized units. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Next, John Heilman.
Thank you, and thank you, Denise and Kol Ami, for hosting us, and Icon for putting on this great program. My name is John Heilman. I helped found the city of West Hollywood 38 years ago. I can't believe it's been 30 years since Kol Ami started. We've had a long history of partnership, whether it's the Baba Yar Monument, whether it's the annual Yom HaShoah event, and I look forward to continuing my service to the city of West Hollywood. My priorities are public safety, restoring the budget for our sheriff's deputies, making sure we address the conflict between the city and the business community and resolve that, and make sure that we have a new approach to homelessness that actually helps people get off the street and into the services that they need. So I look forward to the rest of the questions, and I look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And finally, we have Zakia Wright.
Good evening, and thank you to our gracious host for having us this evening. My name is Zakia Wright. My path to running for West Hollywood City Council hasn't been easy, and it wasn't a direct path. But the lessons that I learned along the way will be an incredible asset as I serve the residents of West Hollywood. As a Black queer that grew up in the South, I learned the value of community. As a law student that started my law school's first LGBTQ bar association, I learned how to persist. As a trained mediator, I value collaborating over conflict, and as an attorney that fights for employees every day, I understand what it means to let community members know that their voices matter. I look forward to working with Kol Ami and ICANN and other Jewish organizations in their fight to combat anti-Semitism. I look forward to contributing and being an ally in all the ways that I'm needed. And I look forward to this conversation this evening, so thank you.
Zakia, thank you. And I do want to apologize. I want to respect your pronouns as they and them, so I will make that correction. Thank you so much. Let's get to the very first topic, which is public safety and anti-Semitism. Some of you have made it clear where you stand on public safety just in your 1-minute introductions tonight. Some of you made it clear on your campaign websites. What is clear to me is that there seems to be a divide between some of the candidates and the current council right now as it pertains to public safety. And recently, one of the points of contention was the city council decided to remove several LA County Sheriff's deputies from their positions patrolling the streets here in West Hollywood and decided to replace them with unarmed security ambassadors. Many of you feel you need the extra deputy protection on our streets. West Hollywood does not have its own police force. They are patrolled by the LA County Sheriff's Office, and you feel that they need to be here to protect the institutions. What is your position on this issue, and what will you do to protect the Jewish community in West Hollywood? Also, do you support the council's recent decision to adopt the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism? I will repeat all of this because it's a little bit to take in, so if you need a refresher on what we're asking, I will happily repeat it. And just for the people at home and for those who do not know, IHRA is the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and the IHRA's definition of anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. So, with all of that being said, we will start with Zakia Wright on those particular topics. And again, Zakia, the first part of the question is what is your position on the issue of public safety? What will you do to protect the Jewish community in West Hollywood?
I think the last part was if I agree with the adoption of the definition.
Yes.
And I do. I believe it's just a wide consensus on that definition for anti-Semitism. And so I do agree with it. Although, you know, being a person that's sort of grown up with, you know, being discriminated against and things like that, I always defer to the community that's affected by it for that definition. As far as the council's decision to add 30 block-by-block communities, block-by-block ambassadors in order to help the Sheriff's Department protect the city, I do think that we need additional resources on the city. I think the block-by-block is a good step, but I think the main issues that we're worried about in the city is the unhomed population increasing and also folks just feeling unsafe, not knowing if the person that's on the street is someone that's going to cause them harm or someone that's just down on their luck. And so what I would encourage council to do and what I would do as a council member is work to make sure we have mental healthcare professionals that are on the street that can properly respond to those issues when folks in our community may be having mental issues, if they're having addiction issues and they need to be put into a care facility. We need that. I don't think one solution and the other is sufficient. I think we're still missing a crucial piece to the puzzle. And as far as protecting the Jewish community, I think the number one issue, and one of the things that I learned by attending the summit that was held here, was that education is key. I learned so many things. I learned how anti-Semitism manifests itself. It's not just in sort of the ways that I assumed, and so I would defer to us educating the community more. Thank you.
Thank you, Zakiya. Mr. Heilman.
I'll take the last question first. I support the definition. In terms of the public safety decision by the City Council, I do not support cutting the sheriff's deputies. I think it was an unwise move. I think it makes us less safe, not, as it's been spinned, that they put all of these additional block-by-block ambassadors on the street, but none of them have the authority to arrest people. They don't have the authority to stop a crime. If a crime is in progress, they have to call the sheriffs, and they've cut the sheriff's deputies. That doesn't make any sense. We need more sheriffs on the street who have the authority to arrest people and document hate crimes and to document all the other crimes that happen in this city. I think it was a very naive decision. What I would do is restore funding for the sheriffs. I would make sure that all new businesses have security systems. I would also make sure that we have a better system for communicating when crimes occur, not only through block by block, but through all of the private security as well. And I have a number of other things that I would do to promote public safety in the city, including addressing hate crimes.
Thank you, John. Lauren Meister.
Thank you, and I would appreciate if you talk about, when you talk about council, to say council majority, because actually I voted against cutting sheriff's deputies. When Councilmember Horvath proposed cutting 5 deputies, I said I would not vote for a budget that cut any deputies. I believe we need more deputies. We need them on the streets, walking the streets, and on bicycles so that they are part of the community. Obviously on council, I approved the IHRA resolution officially, and I just, my belief is that we can have it all. We can have sheriff's deputies, we can have block-by-block security ambassadors, and we can have mental health professionals on the street. The more we have mental health professionals on the street, that opens up time for our sheriff's deputies to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is preventing crime and solving crimes, and that's what we need our sheriff's deputies to be doing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you for the correction. Steve Martin.
Well, I was probably one of the few people who's up here who came to the council meeting to support the council's position on the definition of anti-Semitism, and that was quite a raucous meeting. I've also was the first person to jump in when the Public Safety Commission, including Robert Oliver, voted to cut 10 deputies out of our 60 as part of a defund program. And frankly, it's not just foolish, it's uninformed and irresponsible and politically performative. We can bring as many block-by-block people in and as many mental health workers in as we want, but that does not cut response times when you cut deputies. There's no logic to having fewer deputies when you've got an increase in crime. And, we're hearing a lot of talk, a lot of spin. I know the Unite Here candidates, part of their platform is defunding the sheriff. That's all fine and dandy, but be honest with the public about what you plan on doing. My plan is to restore funding to pre-COVID levels and beyond, adding bike patrols, adding foot patrols, and doing what is necessary. I also think that we need to make sure that the sheriff and block by block are really keeping an eye out on our synagogues and our schools, as well as our parks, particularly with all the hate crimes and anti-Semitism we've been seeing as of late. We just don't know. We have been so lucky here in West Hollywood. Is somebody adding that timer? Oh, okay.
I told you it would haunt you later. Next, Mr. Ben Savage.
Thank you. I too was at the IHRA council meeting, and I don't agree that there was strong support. While the council voted 5-0 to pass the resolution, I was in that room, and there was enormous criticism of the IHRA resolution, and I want to make sure that we have strong people on the council that will never fold to people that are promoting anti-Semitism, and they're against the Israeli people. And in terms of public security, I do live in the Norma Triangle in West Hollywood, and I want to tell you, my neighbors who have lived there since the 50s and 60s have told me that for the first time they're scared to leave their houses at night. I don't think that's right. And I don't think the answer is to put public kiosks in the front of pavilions and say, that's enough, deal with it. I do, however, agree that it's a false choice that we need to have one or the other. We need to provide and restore funding for the public sheriffs and for the sheriff's department. And we also need to provide funding for block by block, mental health services, social services, clinical health services, because there are different situations and difficult circumstances. And in terms of the Israeli community and the Jewish community, we need to always protect them, be strong, because it doesn't take long for a skirmish in the West Bank or the Middle East to take place on Sushi Fumi on La Cienega, where Jewish residents are suddenly attacked and beaten for no reason. So we always need to be ever vigilant and make sure that our Jewish community and our Israeli friends are always taken care of and looked after. Again, I'm strongly in support of restoring the funding for the Sheriff's Department. And again, I also think we should be funding other services as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Robert Oliver.
Thank you. So I guess just to go down the list, for the IRA definition, I do support it. I actually introduced it at the Public Safety Commission, as I mentioned, and then it moved to council. I spoke in favor of the Jewish Community Security Plan. If I'm elected, I will strengthen it. It is an important partnership. It lays a roadmap out for partnership between law enforcement, community organizations, residents, and other stakeholders in the community. I did not support the reduction. I spoke against the reduction in sheriff's deputies at that council meeting. What I did was I voted to move a conversation from an unelected appointed board to council. One sign of a flailing campaign is attacking other candidates. So I'm not going to, but I will welcome anybody to look at a 2020 op-ed written by Mr. Martin, which basically is the same argument made by a commissioner to defund. I don't support it if I'm elected. I will restore any cuts to the sheriff's contract. We need the sheriff's contract. We do need additional resources, and thankfully we live in a city where we have the resources to do both. We can fund our sheriff's department and we can add mental health, homelessness, and substance abuse resources. I think going forward, we need to work together as a community and not be attacking one another, and this is part of why I think West Hollywood voters are looking for new leadership, because of that kind of divisiveness that we've seen. Thank you.
All right, Robert, thank you. Jordan Cockram.
Thank you. All right. I will also start with the second part of the question and say that, yes, I absolutely did support adopting the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. For the first part of the question, I did not or do not agree with cutting funding for the Sheriff's Department in West Hollywood. My father is a former police officer, so I understand what's required to make sure that our police officers and people in uniform have the resources that they need to keep us safe. If I'm on city council, I'm going to restore that funding. I actually spoke with I've spoken to residents, and that's something they want as well. Having more of those foot patrols in the neighborhoods are what's going to keep us safe and reduce crime, and that's a great way to also deter and spot when there are anti-Semitic or any sort of hate crime issues that are happening in the neighborhood. We want that. We want that in West Hollywood, and that's what the residents want, and so that's what I'm going to push for. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jordan. Chelsea Byers.
I'll follow the same pattern and flip the response questions. I think it's a great thing that we have a definition on the books now for anti-Semitism, one that was drawn up by the community. It's a model for other communities to follow and write their own definitions for hate crimes as well. I also just want to say, to Ben's point, there was dissent in the chamber that night, and I think that beckons the community and city council to ask what's next. How do we provide education to further this discussion? Because it's not enough to just let folks, be embroiled in this sort of unknowing of what's next. We have to answer that as a community, and I think more education is terrific. We also need to be really aggressive when it comes to public safety. The thing we're fearing the most, which is removing these sheriff deputies from the streets, actually hasn't happened yet. We have to be really attentive to when that begins to happen, check the data, make sure we're doing as much as possible. We've been incredibly aggressive when it comes to public safety in just the recent months since the fears have risen. We've had nightlife safety task force. We've had a ton of different meetings specific to different types of issues, the cell phone theft that was happening in clubs. That's the type of vigilance we need to keep on. And with regards to the Jewish Community Safety Plan, it's been a little bit of time since it's been implemented. We absolutely need to reevaluate, see if it's working, see if it's meeting all of the needs that we have as an evolving community in these evolving times. Thank you.
All right, Chelsea, thank you. And finally, Mr. John Duran.
Yes, on the definition. Get that out of the way. So I was born and raised in East LA, and everybody on our block was either Latino or Jewish. That's what East LA looked like in the 1960s. So when I first got to college and I was told we were going to study religious minorities, I was shocked when the professor said, tonight we're going to study Catholics and Jews. And I'm like, I'm a minority? I had no idea that Catholics and Jews were minorities because everybody on the block was either Catholic or Jewish. But what I've learned, being involved in politics all these years, is those that hate, extremists on the right or the left, that hate across the board. Whether it's Jews, whether it's LGBT, whether it's immigrants, they just kind of move the target each cycle of the elections. And I think a lot of the discomfort right now is not coming so much from the right, from the political left. People defending Hamas, people defending the PLO, and attacking Israel. Those attacks are coming from the left, not the political right. So I think it's important that we stay right in the center and defend our Jewish community. West Hollywood is 40% LGBT, that's true. It's also 40% Jewish. So those that hate the people of West Hollywood hate equally Jews and LGBT. The sheriff deputies and the firefighters, the first responders have endorsed 3 candidates: John Heilman, Lauren Meister, and John Durant. And there's a reason they endorsed the 3 of us. They think we are the 3 best to defend public safety in this community. Block by block, nice guys on bikes. I'd rather have somebody armed with a badge and a gun than a nice guy on a bike. That's what we need moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duran. Appreciate it, all of you. We are going to move on to question number 2 of the topic of public safety and anti-Semitism, and we're going to put a little bit of a finer point on this. I also want to bring to your attention some of the examples that we've seen in the last 2 weeks in the media that are anti-Semitic. I won't read them all out loud, but I think all of us have seen at some point in the media the last couple of weeks the statements that have been made by celebrities, political figures, news celebrities, and some events that happened at the Grove with the anti-Semitic flyers. I believe many have heard about what Kanye West has said and continues to say and post on social media. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a U.S. Congresswoman, also last week laying out some very obvious white nationalist talking points in front of a crowd. Unfortunately, there isn't enough time to list the number of anti-Semitic remarks and attacks against the Jewish people over the last 2 weeks, and they keep piling up. But with that being said, bringing it here to a finer point at home, there have been disturbing expressions of racism and bigotry here, I'm told, at the Los Angeles City Council, and likewise, many residents in West Hollywood have said that this city feels more divided than ever before. As a member of the City Council, what specifically will you do to bring the West Hollywood community together? And the candidate order starts with this second question of that topic with Jordan Cockram.
All right, thank you so much. This is a perfect question for me because one of the biggest talking points of my campaign has been working together and collaborating and trying to just defuse everything and get people together to work together to solve these common issues because we are all facing this together. If you've seen in any photos or any any op-eds from my events, you can see that I've had candidates from all different, I guess you can call it factions, of running for city council, coming to talk to me, to meet people, to see what's going on. I've been going to a lot of other candidates' events. You might have seen me around there too. I got the award for Mr. Congeniality on WeHoville because I talk to everyone and I want to listen to the opinions of all people. And I think that's what's really important, is talking to people and listening to them and hearing what their concerns are and what their ideas are, because that's how we're going to get the answers that we want to solve the issues that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Steve.
Well, I remember when we were talking about the definition of anti-Semitism, one of the things that I conjured up was Charlottesville and that Tortlich March with those young men walking by saying, "Jews will not replace us." And that was just has been a searing image to me. And every time I hear an anti-Semitic remark, I'm reminded of that. And so it is what's happening in this country right now. Anti-Semitism is very, very real. As far as bringing this community together, that's a tall order. I'll start by listening, and I'll start by empowering people from across the city and from across different viewpoints. Currently, the city's dominated by a council that has appointed its own echo chamber, and it's created all sorts of division. There is this sense that the city needs to impose its own ideology on people and how we think, and frankly, there's getting a lot of pushback on it. We really need to move forward, and it's hard because we've moved from a place of dysfunction back in 2020 to a bigger sense of dysfunction in 2022, and ideally we want to end that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Robert Oliver.
Thank you. I think, yes, we're at a time right now where there is so much division, and you see it at the national level, and it's trickling down to the local level, that kind of vitriol and that divisiveness in politics. I think there's a lack of honesty. We're not having that honest, open dialogue. When we talk about issues like the reduction in the sheriff's contract, it's ideological. You have people on both sides have an ideological debate instead of an honest one. What is going on in our city, and what do we need? If we're honest, we're seeing crime increase, and we need to make sure that we have every tool in the public safety toolbox to combat that. Anti-Semitism is the oldest hatred, and it's changed forms. At one time, they hated us for our religion, then they hated us, and now they hate us for a state. Jews are blamed for all sorts of issues in society. And today, anti-Zionism is the newest form of anti-Semitism. So I, as a council member, will be vigilant, will call it out, will not give a platform to it. In 2019, a Nakba film, an anti-Israel propaganda film was screened in West Hollywood on the taxpayer's dime. I will not vote to support that kind of use of taxpayer funds if I'm elected. We need to not give it a voice. We need to bring people together, not allow voices to come in that want to divide us. And it's time to move back to a time when reasonable people could disagree, we could find compromise, and it wasn't all about ideology and being right. It's about community. Thank you.
Mr. Oliver. Your time is up. Next, we'll have Chelsea Byers.
I'm a community organizer by skill and by practice. It's an ability I have to bring people together from across difficult differences. I've also been somebody who's never shied away from a difficult conversation. So I believe that modeling that sort of leadership helps bring folks from the margins into community in new ways. I was really grateful to be able to participate in the Anti-Semitism Summit here at Kol Ami, hosted by ICANN. I think those sort of discussions, which we've had many of in the last several months as community, are necessary, and we need to be in more regular space. It's nice when you're somebody who goes to those rooms, but you start to see some of the same folks. The question is, how do we extend that sort of conversation to others, bring people into difficult discussions? Days of dialogue, something I witnessed Los Angeles have the first time I sat down with law enforcement officers, community activists, Black Lives Matter folks, people you would never think would have a conversation together. I think we're the city of inclusion, of creativity. Both of those values help us find really thoughtful pathways to be able to bring folks into conversation, which is more and more necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Byers. Next, Mr. John Duran.
Thank you. I've written a few op-eds in Wehoville about various issues. This was an issue I wrote about. Our current city government has people separated by their differences: a transgender advisory board, a gay and lesbian advisory board, a disability board, a women's board, a seniors board. And what's ended up happening is we have set up silos made up on people's differences without people talking to one another. I've proposed blowing up all the boards and creating one human relations commission in the city of West Hollywood, where people are allowed to educate one another about their culture, their community, their heritage. Otherwise, we end up just having groups of people talking to themselves and never educating others about what the differences are. I've always said people should focus not on how we're different, but what we have in common. That's where the focus needs to be. And we can't do that in different silos of different communities of people who are not cross-talking with one another. It's time to blow up all these boards. They've just become nests for political hacks, Democratic Party activists, future council members, and they're not really serving any purpose other than creating the divisiveness. One Human Relations Commission focusing on all these issues with various people from various communities all working together in unison. I think that's what we need moving forward from here. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Lauren Meister.
Thank you very much. Well, I brought forward the Anti-Semitism Summit with ICANN and Kol Ami, and one of the reasons is we need to have education. That is a big part of ridding the world of anti-Semitism is education. But we also need to make sure that there are consequences for hate crimes and consequences for hate. And that means that we need a strong district attorney. We need police that will go after people who do these crimes. And when Sushi Fumi happened, that's actually right around the corner from my house. I, the next day, called Maimonides Academy, which is right down the street from there, and said, what can we do? And we went over with the sheriff's team and spoke to parents and teachers and the principal, and afterwards the sheriffs went through and made sure about their security to make sure that they were comfortable. And that's what we need to do, is to work together to make sure that our community does feel safe. About the divisive behavior and what's going on in our community, that really is a function of our council. We have an identity politics problem on council. Everything is identity politics. I am the local gal. I just care about what's going on in our city in terms of what things do we need: public safety, traffic management, services, social services, and that's what we need to be focused on as we move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Meister. John Heilman.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. And as I listened to the council members in the city of LA and that travesty that happened, what really surprised me was how surprised people were that somehow they thought homophobia had gone away, or racism had gone away, or anti-Semitism had gone away. It hasn't. In fact, it's gotten worse. And I think it's gotten worse because we have all of these new mechanisms through the internet for people to communicate with one another who have these kind of extremist views. I agree with Lauren. Part of what we need to do as a city council is to hold people accountable, but we also need to work on education so people understand the impact. And I see it with my students, some of them on the far right, some of them on the far left, who have these sort of casual references to Israel that are negative, casual references to various communities that show an incredible lack of intelligence and a lack of awareness of the impact of that kind of discrimination. In terms of bringing people together, I served on the council for 38 years, and I certainly wasn't perfect, but I think I have a reputation for listening to people, trying to make decisions based on what I think is best for the community, and that's why some of the people who haven't always supported me are supporting me now, because they feel like I'm somebody who will listen and will focus on what's best for the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Zakiya Wright.
Thank you. West Hollywood was founded as a beacon of progression, as a beacon of togetherness and community. And sometime along the way, we lost what that was. We have, LGBTQ felt safe and secure here. The Jewish community felt safe here. And now we find ourselves now being so split that we can't even sit in the same room and have an honest conversation. And to me, that starts with leadership. That starts with leadership not telling the truth about facts and statistics. It starts with folks having outside interests that aren't relevant and directly germane to the lives of the folks that live in West Hollywood. It starts with folks, misconstruing numbers and saying things that just aren't true, so we can't actually ever get to the issue because we're still fighting about what's true and what's not. And so some of that, as I've been campaigning and talking to folks at their doors, they say the most redundant thing that I've heard, and not redundant in a bad way, but just that's been repeated, is that no one is listening. And so that's making them angry, it's making them pull out, it's making them not want to participate, and then, they become hostile towards leadership, but it's because leadership aren't paying attention to their interests. And so it's our job as elected officials and as candidates hoping to be, to make sure we are pushing forward, we're spreading the truth, and we're having honest conversations because it matters to the daily lives of everyone in the city, and we can't act like it's going to go away. It's going to get worse if we don't start addressing it and being honest about what's happening. Thank you.
Right on time, Zakiya. Thank you. And finally on this topic, Ben Savage.
I'm glad we're having this conversation. Anti-Semitism is an extremely important topic and something that needs to be addressed openly and honestly. First of all, the fact that anyone would feel comfortable denigrating another human being is insulting. We're all children of God, and I strongly believe in addressing anti-Semitism now, because if you let it grow and you let it fester, we all know how that ends. So it's important to have these conversations and have them now openly and honestly. In terms of the city council and setting a new tone, that's why I believe that I'm running for city council. We need new leadership, people that are passionate about the city, people that will fight for the residents, people that will fight for local businesses, people will fight for renters, people will fight for local workers, because this is a wonderful city and it's passionate and it's strong, but we need people who are in charge, who care about the city and are strong enough to look beyond social media and it will fight for what's right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. We're going to move on to our second topic now, which is Israel and the Jewish community. I don't think it's a big secret that the city of West Hollywood has a long history of working with Israel and Israel-related organizations. You heard Mr. Duran also point out earlier that the Jewish population here in West Hollywood is large, obviously in Los Angeles County.
This is a civic meeting. This isn't a meeting about Judaism or anti-Semitism, or even though it's taking place in the city.
It's the Jewish Community Forum.
As citizens of West Hollywood, here are
Ma'am, I appreciate your input, but tonight's forum is being sponsored by the Israeli American Civic Action Network and Kol Ami. It is very appropriate and it's very timely right now.
Community forum, and that's the question. If you don't want to be here, you don't have to stay.
anti-Semitism is not an urgent, one of the most urgent matters.
I
If you would like to come outside and talk to me,
This is a serious topic here for the city of West Hollywood.
Because it's in a religious. Go outside. Please come outside. Please come outside.
The rabbi is inviting you to have a private discussion so we can continue our forum.
I'm Jewish, so.
I am sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. I think it's a misuse and a misnomer.
There'll be multiple forums on multiple different topics. This is one of many, and I'm sorry it didn't sit right with you. Thank you, Rabbi. My apologies to the candidates for that brief interruption. We'll continue on the topic of Israel and the Jewish community. And again, the city of West Hollywood, of course, has a working relationship with Israel, Israel-related organizations. As a member of the city council, will you protect and preserve the ordinance forbidding contracts with BDS companies? And do you support AB 2844? And for the people who are at home who do not know what BDS stands for, that is boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel, people who believe that needs to happen. And also just a refresher on AB 2844, which was signed into law in 2016. It is a measure that prevents companies that boycott or discriminate against any sovereign state, including Israel, from doing business with the state. So, moving on now, we will start with candidate Chelsea Byers on this topic. Absolutely. Sure. It's AB 2844, which was signed into law in 2016. It is a measure that prevents companies that boycott or discriminate against any sovereign state, including Israel, from doing business with the state. And again, just to remind you, BDS stands for boycott, divestment, and sanctions. These are companies, people, or organizations that have positions to take that stance against Israel.
Yeah. As much as, on paper, these tactics seem legitimate and nonviolent, and that was something I understood at one point in time, I now understand and see the very ways that BDS furthers anti-Semitism in really dangerous ways and harmful ways to our community and tears us apart. So I support the city of West Hollywood's long leadership on these issues, and if these are resolutions that we've supported, then I stand with our city.
John Duran.
In 2016, John Heilman and I introduced a resolution, anti-BDS resolution that the city passed. So I was very proud to do that, and ICANN actually brought the idea to me. Thank you for that. For many years, I was the national co-chair of NALEO, the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, which means I got invited to APAC every year as one of their featured speakers. And I went on an APAC-sponsored trip to Israel. And I think it's really important that everybody take a trip to Israel and spend time in Israel. I even got to go to the PLO headquarters, which was a little awkward, but it was an APAC-sponsored event, so what the heck, I went. But I think it's important that people see Israel and see the purpose of Israel and what Israel has to offer the world in technology, in agriculture, in progressive values. I mean, the country is just a phenomenal thing to see. I think right now, I'm sorry that Ms. Oppenheim got upset, but this is the problem right here, is that people think anti-Semitism is not an important issue to talk about. It is. It is in this current political environment. It is one of the top issues to talk about because we see right now Israel under attack from the left and from the right and being targeted by those extremists on both sides. So yes, it's important because if we don't speak out, never again, that is the motto, it will fester and it will grow. It's important to cut it out, call it out. On Twitter, I called out Kanye West the moment I read his offensive comments about targeting Jews. And it's important that elected officials and people involved in community call it out when it happens so it nips it in the bud. That's what needs to occur. Thank you.
John, thank you so much. Lauren Meister.
Thank you. I'm against the BDS movement. It was a movement that was actually founded in anti-Semitism. I have been on council. I was on council with John and John when they did introduce the resolution to support Richard Bloom's AB 2844, which I supported. I think Israel has a lot to offer. I actually was bat mitzvahed on Mount Scopius with my 90-year-old grandmother, my mother, my sister, and my aunt on a trip to Israel, where I saw how Israel made basically a desert into an incredible agriculture. We have so much to learn from them when it comes to things like water and what we do with water that we see is being wasted here when you see dewatering happening on construction sites. We need to work with Israel to learn from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meister. John Heilman.
Thank you. I support the state bill. I also oppose BDS. When we were on the council, and when I was on the council very early on, we adopted a provision that said in all of our city contracts, there is a provision that says that the contractor promises that they do not adhere to the boycott of Israel. And that's very important because I think that's a reflection of our values as a city, that we don't support that kind of nonsense. I think that in terms of the partnership with Israel, we as a city have hosted experts on HIV. We have hosted experts who are scientists who've come to the city. Obviously, we're quite some distance from Israel, but a lot of Israelis live here, a lot of Israelis come to West Hollywood, and we should be welcoming them, and we should be learning, and we should be sharing our resources and our information in a true partnership, and I support continuing that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Heilman. Ben Savage.
Thank you for the question. I strongly support the anti-BDS bill as well. I believe that we should form a strong partnership with Israel. Israel is a remarkable success story. We have much to learn from them in terms of their advancements in a whole host of fields: technology, healthcare, environmental issues. So I think there's a lot of partnerships to be formed, and we have to be ever vigilant, again, of the rising anti-Semitism in West Hollywood and elsewhere. And I continue to support the anti-BDS bill and hope we continue to foster a wonderful relationship with Israel.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Zakia.
Thank you. I support the city's continued, not contracting with companies that support BDS and the state bill as well. We have an important ally and relationship with Israel, and I think, our job is to make sure that we're supporting the efforts and not, allowing Israel to be under attack by the BDS movement, or the possibility of losing Israel as a sovereign state. And so for me, I think West Hollywood has a place, but I think the U.S. on a greater scale should continue to provide aid to Israel. I think we have to call out that the violence and all of the things happening to the Palestinians is also large part due to Hamas, Iran, and other bad actors in the Gaza Strip. So yes, that's my response. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Zakia. Robert Oliver.
Thank you. Great question. And yes, that kind of comment and that attitude is indicative of how much harder we need to fight. I strongly oppose BDS. I spent a year of my professional career fighting it on college campuses. It's unfortunate that countries that do commit egregious human rights abuses under that kind of legislation, there can't be boycotts against those countries. Israel is not one of those countries. Anyone who's visited knows that. Israel's a beautiful, vibrant country. We are the creative city, and Israel is the startup nation. So there is a natural partnership between West Hollywood and a clear relationship between West Hollywood and Israel. The reestablishment of the state of Israel represents, in my opinion, Jewish self-determination and also the greatest tool to combat anti-Semitism globally. Jews around the world are safer because of the state of Israel. So as we're talking about anti-Semitism tonight, not mentioning that is a failure. We need to recognize that we need to support Israel because Israel makes Jews safer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Steve Martin.
Well, I think the creation of the State of Israel was the only good thing that came out of World War II, and the only thing that really could in any way offset what happened in the Holocaust, which is just mind-boggling. I've never supported BDS, and I don't think many people here have, because what it does, it closes down conversations. And conversations about peace are so important, and when you just put up walls, those conversations can't happen. The one thing that impresses me about Israel isn't so much about their technology or their agricultural policies or their vibrant nightlife in Tel Aviv. It's the fact that as a country, much like the United States, they call into question their founding principles, and they try to be better people as often as not. I know we struggle with that in our own country, but I think that is one thing that Americans and Israelis have in common, that we want to create the best society that we can be. And that's just very important because not many countries in the world do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. And finally, Jordan Cockram.
Thank you very much. So I am very against the BDS movement, and I do support the state bill. I don't believe in working with any companies that are actively trying to divest or not support Israel. It is just flat out racist, veiled behind the fake attempt to not support a nation that violates human rights. If you actually cared that much about nations that violated human rights, you would also be boycotting China or Saudi Arabia that openly execute citizens for speaking out against the government. It's not a secret. So if you're supporting boycotting Israel, it's veiled racism. We want to support Israel. We want to keep that relationship strong because we have a long history with them and we have a strong history with them. And Israel is right now probably our only chance for peace in the Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan, very much. We are going to move on now to the next question in topic 2, which is Israel and the Jewish community. Again, the topic. So some of you have alluded to it and made it very obvious that you have spent some time in Israel. So I will ask all of you, have you been to Israel? And before you all get up and answer, just to be fair, as your moderator, I have been to Israel, so I am asking this question from experience. What work would you have done or would you do to build the West Hollywood-Israel relationship? And describe any work you have done in our local Jewish communities to strengthen that bond and bring awareness. We're going to start with Robert Oliver on the second part of the question.
So, great question. I think a few things have come up along the way. I've been to Israel many times. I actually got married in Israel. My husband and I and 25 people we love schlepped to Israel and got married overlooking the Dead Sea. I've worked in 2 Jewish elected officials' offices for the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles. I serve on the board of a Jewish West Hollywood-based nonprofit, and I'm serving in my 4th term on my 3rd board and commission here in the West Hollywood, and I've used every board, every platform, every position in any office or nonprofit to be an advocate for the Jewish community, to speak out on issues like BDS, to speak out on the alarming rise in anti-Semitism that we're seeing. I have been very active, bless you. I've been very active with JQ International, which is the nonprofit that I serve on the board of, and part of why I do that is to create a space for LGBT Jews to not only find community, but to express their Judaism. That's very important. For me, I'm not the most religious person, but having a space to practice gives me a cultural space. And that's what I like to provide for other people, and that gives me a sense of meaning, frankly. My husband and I have had 70, 80 people for Shabbat dinner in our home on multiple occasions, and that, to me, is community. And also, I will say, add to that, we need to continue the partnership that Rabbi Ager and Kol Ami have had with the government and with the city for decades. That's a 2-way relationship, and I'm very sad that Rabbi Ager is retiring, but I'm going to continue that relationship.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. Shabbat sounds like a lot of fun. Just let me know what wine I need to bring and we'll be there. Yes, absolutely, Jordan. You want the question again?
Say the 3 questions.
Sure, absolutely. Have you been to Israel, and what work have you done to build the West Hollywood-Israel relationship, and describe any work you've done in our local Jewish community? But we started with Robert. Next is Chelsea Byers.
I have not yet been to Israel. I made an attempt in 2017 with the wider bridge that didn't come through, and then I had a plane ticket in 2020 and COVID came faster. Very sad. Hope to make that happen very soon. As far as my relationship building with the Jewish community throughout Los Angeles, I was working with United Way for 3 years on housing and homelessness, and in that space had an opportunity to do tremendous work with Jewish community organizations across LA. I participated in events hosted by synagogues. I got to speak before the Jewish Federation. I did a bus tour that I organized for members of ECAR, the congregation that's now building supportive and affordable housing on their very own property. So those experiences helped open my eyes to the values that the Jewish community has when it comes to addressing the 1/5 of Jews that live in poverty across Los Angeles, and so many other people who are affected by homelessness and economic disparity here. So those are really amazing relationships, in addition to the relationships I've continued to build here at Kol Ami and ICANN. So thank you so much.
All right, Chelsea, thank you. John Duran.
Yes, I've been to Israel. It was a dream to see Jerusalem. I'll tell you about it another time. It was magnificent to be in Jerusalem. Over the years, when I was national chairman of NALEO, we worked really hard to solidify the relationship between Latinos across the United States, whether they be Cuban, Puerto Rican, in Texas, in California, and Arizona, with the Jewish community across this country. I got to, with ICANN, we brought some experts from Israel over to do HIV work here in West Hollywood with our own experts. And historically, whenever I've wanted to have religious diversity conversations, I've invited the rabbi and Anil Sonnenfeld from Muslims for Progressive Values to get Muslims, Jews, and Christians in the same place in West Hollywood to have conversations like that. I'm one of the co-founders of Equality California. We created Equality California to get marriage equality for the state of California. And that was an up and down roller coaster. You know, Prop 8 passed, and then the bill got signed, and then we won in the Supreme Court. And every time that happened, I'd say, get the rabbi. Because it was important to me that we had people of faith at all these press conferences. And people of faith didn't just mean Episcopalian ministers or people from our own MCC churches. I wanted to have a rabbi present at every press conference. Fortunately, she always said yes. And we always made sure that Judaism was up front in the battle for marriage equality as one of the things that we were doing together as a community. If I go back to council, I'll continue to do that again. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Zakiya Wright.
Thank you. I've not yet visited Israel, but everyone that I know that has gone can't stop talking about it. And I did see that Kol Ami is going next summer, so if you'll have me, I would love to come. One of the things that I've done, with the local Jewish community, I do pro bono work with Bet Tzedek, and I have for the last 4 years. I've attended pretty regularly Shabbat dinners and a few temple services. Some of the things that I hope to do when elected to council to help strengthen our relationship with the Jewish community is, not only the educational component, which I think is super important, but also making sure that our local businesses, are welcoming of the Jewish community. One of the things that I've seen done well was with an org called Transcan Work, where they did training with managers, supervisors, and business owners. And at the end of that training, they were given like a decal to say, I've been trained, I'm, trans friendly, and I would like to see our businesses have decals in the windows that shows that they are welcoming and supportive of the Jewish community, and that also that they've had the training to be able to talk about it with their employees, and also to show that we won't tolerate, anti-Semitism and things in the city. And finally, I've spoken with, a few members of like JQ International just asking, what would you need more from the city in order to feel better supported? And some of the things that they said was, better recognition of holy days, not having city events on some of those days, to be better about educating people about what the festivals and holidays and things like that are. And I fully support that, because I think in order for us to get past our biases, that we have to understand other people's cultures and traditions, and I welcome that in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Zakiya. Lauren Meister.
Thank you. So, yes, I've been to Israel. I come from Brooklyn, New York. My family, for me, being Jewish is more a cultural thing than a religious thing. And when you grow up in New York, you would understand that. My grandmother her whole life wanted to go to Israel, so when it was her 90th birthday, she said, I'm taking the family and we're going to Israel. And we got to tour all of Israel, and it was really, like I said, an amazing experience because they are so ahead of everyone, especially when it comes to agriculture and technology. So what I would say is I would love to work with Israel on things like our water issues, smart technology, tourism, which Israel has an incredible tourism industry. And as far as here, I would like to work with the ADL, Jewish Federation, ICANN, obviously Kol Ami, on educating here about anti-Semitism, because it's so important that children learn about the Holocaust. We cannot allow the schools to just omit parts of history. And it's not about religion, it's about history, it's about what really happened. So we have to make sure that we educate our people. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Meister. Steve Martin.
I have not been to Israel, but it would be a great place to go. There's so many opportunities to enhance our relationship, the city's relationship with the Jewish community, particularly on cultural events and things that have maybe fallen by the wayside. But I think we often forget that when we started cityhood, it was really an alliance between Jewish seniors and gay men. And it was a remarkable alliance, as Denise is saying, because people really came together, crossed, and all kinds of divides to really make a city where all of us felt safe. Speaking to that, though, is that I've been very concerned. I've been fighting to protect housing for seniors. Many of them, because of the demographics, are Jewish. I provided pro bono work for seniors who've been harassed by landlords. I've really been fighting hard, as has Lauren Meister, on the issue of one-for-one replacement housing. We want to discourage the demolition of rent-controlled housing because we want to keep our senior community, which is largely Jewish, in place for as long as we can. I've also advocated a guaranteed income program to keep people of limited income who are often Jewish in place, part of our community, and because they've represented a lot of the vibrancy of not just our history, but of who we are today. I mean, I've been blessed to have a neighbor that's always inviting us out for Shabbos dinner. I was blessed to have be married by Denise Ager on the roof. We're not Jewish, but she was the most, how we say, beloved person of faith that we could think of to seal our union. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Ben Savage.
Thank you. I have not had the opportunity to visit Israel, so please sign me up for that Kol Ami trip. I'm in. Very much looking forward to it. My mother did live in Israel and taught there, and we have very close friends that are from Israel. In terms of partnerships and cross-partnerships, I'm very proud of my work with the Israel Cancer Research Fund, and I think that's something that we've missed tonight and something that we should be discussing, is that a lot of our seniors, Jewish, non-Jewish, are affected by cancer. That's something that affects all of us, my own family included. And so I believe that that's an important program that we could work with and explore. The ICRF Fund is really a wonderful organization which gives grants and research funding to scientists in Israel who are coming up with innovative and breaking cures for cancer research. They're not as inhibited as they are here by bureaucratic red tape, so they're really on the cutting edge of cancer research. So I think that's something that we could really explore and discuss and continue that relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Jordan Cockram.
Thank you. Yes, I have been to Israel. It's way too good of a story to try to cram into 90 seconds. I ended up going with Birthright on the second LGBT tour, so please come up and ask me about it. It was great. I have not been involved with the Jewish community here connecting, Israel to West Hollywood, and that's why I'm really excited to be here and so happy to meet all of you. My whole campaign and platform has been about meeting people and talking to people and hearing their experiences and what we can do and what I can do to become involved and how I can strengthen relationships and make those connections and make things better for everyone. I actually spoke with the rabbi a month or so ago who mentioned to me that there have been people in city government who have never come here, never done anything with the community until we get close to election time. And I don't want to be one of those people. I want to be involved right from the beginning, because that's how you become a part of the community, and that's how you can help it grow. And that's what I want to do. Thank you.
Jordan, thank you very much. And John Heilman.
Thank you. Like Chelsea, I was planning on going to Israel in 2020 and COVID shut that down, but I hope to go in 2023, so maybe I can join with everyone else on this trip. In terms of partnering, we partnered with Kol Ami for many years on our annual Yom HaShoah event. We partnered and co-sponsored many of the visitors who came here from Israel. And what hasn't been mentioned is our incredible network of social services that we established in the city of West Hollywood. And many of our largest agencies that we fund come out of the Jewish community. Jewish Family Service runs our senior center and does all of our senior programs. Jewish Vocational Services operates our job placement program at the library. Beth Tzedek, that Zakia mentioned, runs many of our legal assistance programs. And no one has also mentioned our Russian-speaking community, many of whom are Jewish. We've partnered with them on an annual Hanukkah lighting festival. We've partnered with them with the Babi Yar Monument. We've partnered with them in terms of providing affordable housing, which is a critical need for many in the immigrant community. I think there are a lot of opportunities for us to continue this partnership by sponsoring activities, inviting people. The reference to tourism is great. And I think we also have to acknowledge Israel's incredible leadership on LGBTQ issues. It's the only country in that region where people can be openly gay. And we should acknowledge that is such progress for that part of the world. Thank you.
John, thank you so much. And for all the candidates who have not been to Israel, I will just say, when you do go, rest assured that any corner store you pop into, the baba ganoush and hummus is out of this world. It is so good. I haven't been there in 10 years and I still think about it. So keep that in mind when you are there. We do have some extra time for a bonus question, but it is tight. So everyone will get 90 seconds for this final question of tonight's forum. There is a perception among some residents and business owners that City Hall does not function well, or portions of City Hall. What vision do you have about how City Hall can be run more effectively and efficiently, and what will you personally do to make this happen? Again, you have 90 seconds to answer this question, and we'll start with Steve Martin.
Well, I think City Hall functions very well if you're a deep-pocketed developer. That's always been a problem. It does not work so well for other people. I mean, particularly people trying to open up businesses in the city. And we really need to look at how we're doing business in West Hollywood at City Hall. We have had a 20-year tenure of a very successful run with our former city manager, but we really need fresh eyes at City Hall. There is a lot of dysfunction at City Hall now, but there was a lot of dysfunction at City Hall before 2020. I mean, we had bad headlines, dysfunctional deputies, we had sex scandals. So things were not the promised land before 2020. We thought we were getting change for the better. Unfortunately, we didn't. Now, I believe that I can bring together people because I have the outside eyes. I've been the person who's been coming to the planning commission meetings, going to the council meetings, and fighting for the residents when the need be. I was Marquita and Robert Oliver and I were are the only three candidates that showed up at the June 4th City Council meeting to talk about the cuts on the Sheriff's Department. I mean, you know, other people apparently felt that they could just sort of parachute in on the issue. But I believe that I'm uniquely positioned because I am not taking money from developers. I'm not represented I'm not controlled by the Chamber of Commerce. I'm not controlled by any unions, but I can approach these things independently with what's in the best interest of the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Zakia Wright.
Don't take my time off for that. I don't know that I would say that City Hall is dysfunctional. I'll say that there are some issues that we need to really look at, and I think it starts at the base. For example, our staff hasn't been fully staffed since prior to the pandemic, and so we have folks doing the jobs of different people. One person's doing 3 different jobs, and you can tell with the final product that there's not full attention, and sometimes not even an expertise in some of the areas. So I think the number one priority is to making sure we have a strong foundation at City Hall by making sure we're fully staffed. I think, beyond that, some of the things that I've heard, not only from businesses and from community members, is that we don't know what's going on. We don't know what services we have available. We don't know when something's coming on the agenda, when it's going to get passed. And once it is, I don't feel like, most people don't feel like what they wanted or what they said or the input that they gave was ever even considered. That council members going to meetings, their mind's already made up, and so it doesn't matter what the community says. And we have to do a better job of having those conversations. Maybe that takes time of going and having community meetings with community members, 5 or 6 people. Let's talk about this thing. Because at the end of the day, the decisions that we're making, it's too important to be made by just 5 people. Sure, we're elected, folks are elected, but we're elected and we're given power from the people, and so what the community wants should always be in consideration. And so one of the things that I'll do is what I'm doing now is meeting with small groups of residents and asking, what are your concerns? What are your solutions? Here's what I propose. Let's have a good discourse and make sure we come to a solution that we can all live with. Thank you.
Thank you, Zakia. John Heilman.
Thank you for this question. I'm concerned as well as to what's happening at City Hall. Number one, we need to get all of the employees back to City Hall so that people can actually work together and that the community can access the services they need. Secondly, we need an ombudsperson who can work with small businesses to help them navigate the process. The larger developers hire their own people to do it, but a small business trying to open is delayed and delayed and delayed, and they don't know who to call. Third, I think we need to address the issue of the city council interfering with the staff. I've heard from city employee after city employee that they're afraid to provide accurate information when they feel the council will retaliate against them. They feel that the council, if they disagree, will then deny them opportunities for promotion. That's a culture that needs to change. We need to make sure that our professional staff feel comfortable giving their best advice, giving the best information. We need to make sure that the council also changes and will be willing to listen not only to the city staff, but to the public when the public raises concerns.
John, thank you very much. Jordan.
Thank you. So I have found that organization has been one of the biggest issues at City Hall. And so many people who are either running or talking about what to do for city council is they say we have to do this, we have to do that, but no one actually has a real plan. It's just, well, we need to fix organization or we need to support people. I have spoken to residents and people who are trying to open businesses within the city. And one of the biggest examples of disorganization is the permitting process for not just businesses, but also for just remodels and homes. It takes forever and it's incredibly disorganized. You get assigned a permit technician at City Hall and you're just emailing between them back and forth. The permitting process takes forever. And I actually have a plan to fix that. I just want to create a simple dashboard on the city website, which would act like a checklist. And if you're applying for your electrical permit or something, it would say you have to turn in A, B, and C. And when you turn in those on the website, it's right there. It says what day and time you turned them in. When you're finished, it says, all right, as of today at noon, you're done. It's on to the city now. And that will help us identify those bottlenecks in the process, because we can see if it's taking the city a month to get to the next steps after you've turned everything in, then we know it's the city's problem. And it could either be there's not enough employees and we need to bring them all back home, or maybe the employees aren't working as hard as they should be to advance those permits. Either way, whatever the issue is, it will help us identify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Ben Savage.
Thank you for the question. I want to tell you about I want to tell you about my neighbor Larry, and I've told this story before, but Larry woke up the other morning and he had an unhoused community member sleeping on his front porch, and he didn't know what to do. He didn't want to call the sheriffs because he didn't want a heavily armed response. So what did he do? He called the Met Team emergency hotline. It went to voicemail. Then he called block by block. And what happened? They waited an hour, and when they showed up, they said, you should call the sheriff's department. So clearly something's not working in the mechanism, in the system. So we need to really fix that and work on the community safety, because unless we're all safe and taken care of, nothing else really matters. Secondly, is supporting small and local businesses. Small and local businesses are being held to the same standards as large, big businesses in West Hollywood. And a lot of local businesses have said to us, what are we doing wrong? We're barely getting by. We're barely making ends meet. These are sandwich shops on Sunset. These are local bars. These are local clothing stores. They can't be held to the same standards as bigger businesses that are in West Hollywood. So we do need an ombudsman, and we need someone helping them in terms of the permitting process and teams of working with the city. There are opt-out clauses, but they're not strong enough, and it's too much process for them to get through it. So I think in terms of community safety and supporting local and small businesses are the beginning. Of course, renters' rights is also important, and building more affordable housing. These are 4 issues that I think we need to work on. Thank you.
Ben, thank you very much. Next up, Robert Oliver.
Thank you. And I think it's time for us to tone down the rhetoric. We have seen this ideological fight. People do show up with a preconceived or a predetermined idea and decision. It's time to bring these issues back to local. We are focusing on broader issues, which we've been a city of activism, and I want to continue that, but we first need to maintain quality of life and focus on regional issues. Homelessness, housing affordability, public safety, our transportation infrastructure. That's why I'm running. And we need new leadership, and we need leaders with experience. I'm a first-time candidate, but I'm not new to municipal government. I'm the only first-time candidate running with over a decade of hands-on local government experience, working every day on these neighborhood issues, the quality of life issues that residents call their city government when they need help. And I learned from mentors and friends of mine like Jeff Prang, who's endorsed my campaign, along with former Congressman Henry Waxman, Democrats for Israel and the Democratic Party. I learned from Jeff that when somebody calls City Hall, whoever answers that phone should, no matter where it is, what you're dealing with that day, you've got your own list of things that you're dealing with. You treat that as your #1 priority, because for the person calling, that's their #1 priority, and that's why they're calling City Hall. And that is how I try in every job to handle everything that comes across my desk. And if I'm elected, that's what I will be in City Hall. I want to be the person that you know you can call when you need help from your city government.
All right,
Thank
Robert, thank you. Chelsea Byers.
There's been a ton of great ideas proposed. We know that we need to fix communications. We know we need to get staff back to full capacity. There's no reason a cookie shop on Santa Monica should take 14 months to open, and affordable housing should not take 4 years to build. These are all City Hall issues, and we can fix them. The thing I'm really focused on as a Human Services Commissioner who's watched month after month after month, folks who need rental services, who need subsidies, who need food, nutritional help. There's many and too many applications that people have to muddle through in order to get what they need. We are under a mass effort to digitize City Hall and make it more accessible to business owners and to developers and to the folks who need to access city services. I think that work needs to be really hyper-focused on making sure that the most vulnerable, the people who have the highest barriers to accessing what they need, that they can reach City Hall. So I want to see our social services division chart a course to make sure that these applications can be streamlined. This is going to take incredible collaborative work with the network of social service providers. There's over 30 nonprofit organizations that the city partners with to do the social service work, but it's possible. We just have to focus on it, and I think that will help us reach the folks who are homebound, who need this sort of care, and who have often felt forgotten from City Hall. Thank you.
Chelsea, thank you. John Duran.
Thank you. 90 seconds. All right. Cities that go adrift fall off the rails. There's an article in the LA Times recently about 50 cities in America that are on the verge of bankruptcy right now, including Compton and Montebello. And that happens to cities. County of Orange filed bankruptcy, as you all remember. If you cut across Santa Monica or Sunset, something happens when you cross La Brea into West Hollywood. Suddenly the streets are clean, everything's pretty, it looks a lot better, you don't have encampments on the street. You go east towards Highland, it's like a third world country. And there's a reason for that. It's not by accident. You know, the city has $140 million in prudent reserves. $100 million a year is what it takes to operate. And I often bear down with residents about where do you think that all comes from? And generally it's like, well, it comes from somewhere. Yeah, it comes from taxes, primarily from the entertainment industry in our city. Hotels, nightlife, bars, restaurants, that's where the lion's share of the taxes come from. So when you attack the Chamber of Commerce, when you attack small businesses, that revenue feed hurts. And then we don't have the funding for sheriffs and firefighters and senior social services. There's a symbiotic relationship between business, small business and big, and resident services. And that seems to be missing from the current council. They just impose a mandatory paid time off for part-time employees citywide. All the small business owners are like, we can't afford we're moving to Los Angeles because we can't afford to comply with the anti-business laws that the council is passing. That has got to stop. We are killing the golden goose. We are hurting our own community when we attack small businesses in the city.
All right, John, thank you. And Lauren Meister.
Thank you. I'll just take this out. So when I joined City Council, one of the first things I did was put forward a small business initiative with a small business task force for them to put forward ideas, for us to work together on ideas on how to streamline business in our city, getting permits in our city, and we have been working on that. I see things from a different perspective. First of all, I don't see the City Hall as dysfunctional as maybe some other people see it. I see that it's council majority that's dysfunctional, that's causing the dysfunction. Our new city manager, actually, one of his, David Wilson's strong points is organization. And he's moved people around and he's given them some different jobs based on what he sees as their area where they can excel. And I've actually been very happy with how he has reorganized City Hall. So I think part of the problem is that our City Council majority has been putting forward so many different things. Our City Hall, they don't know what to do first. You know, first this is the priority, then this is the priority, then this is the priority. Unless we stop and breathe and let them do their jobs, we will get nothing done. And so one of the things I want to do, if I get reelected, is make sure that the initiatives that we have put forward are implemented. Let's make sure that they're implemented. Is that 30 seconds?
That is.
Okay. I just wanted to say that as I've gone around talking to people, what I've found is that for the first time ever, residents and businesses have the same concerns. They have the same concerns. That's why they put together that coalition. Public safety, homelessness, and affordability, whether it be commercial space affordability or residential
Ms. Meister,
affordability.
I will
Thank you.
give you an opportunity to say more,
Okay.
but that was your time on that.
That's
But
my time.
But I will say, remind you that at the beginning of tonight's forum, I said everyone will get the opportunity to have an opening statement and a closing statement. We are at that point of tonight's forum where we are at the closing statements. Everyone will get 1 minute to make their final arguments and pitches to your voters as to why you should be on the city council. And I just got, this is breaking news. We have the candidate order on this final statement here, and we're starting with John Durant.
Thank you, Kol Ami. Thank you, Rabbi Ican, for putting together this forum. I'll try to do this quickly. So 20 years of service on the council. I made mistakes. I'm human. And I apologize when those mistakes happened and ask for forgiveness from the community. Now I'm coming back because things are seriously off track, seriously off track. And I worry about a city that I worked so hard to help build, to help create, this mecca for so many different people, that it's suddenly at risk. And I'm fearful that if we don't get the city stabilized, it's going to drift even further to the left. We lost a lot of intelligence at the city when John and I lost our seats. The city manager left and the city attorney left. The city manager left because he didn't want to have to deal with the chaos of the new council members who were more about ideology than municipal services. It began to focus on the politics of Washington and Sacramento rather than just providing basic functioning government for the people who live and work here. We need to get back on track. If I get reelected, if John gets reelected, if Lauren gets reelected, we are all termed out. after one term. We need to make sure that we start to recruit other people to take our places to keep the city on the right track for its future.
John, thank
I would
you.
welcome your vote November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Chelsea Byers.
Thank you all for providing the space tonight. I'm really grateful to be a part of this. In my candidacy, I focused on the ways our small city can make huge strides when it comes to addressing issues like climate change, the housing and homelessness crisis, and social services for the folks who need them most in this city. I'm really proud to have the endorsements of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, the Los Angeles Federation of Labor, former mayor of West Hollywood, Abby Land, Assemblymember Laura Friedman, and many more who are committed to the future of our city. I really appreciate this conversation tonight. I'm thinking so much about the folks who left this conversation and what was in their hearts too. And I just know that this conversation means a lot to people in so many different directions. So it was important for me to be here and to be a part of this. In me, you always have a fierce ally in addressing hate crimes and addressing fear and addressing concerns around anti-Semitism in this community. I see how it's growing and rising, and I'm not oblivious to that. I also just want to say that I'm really deeply committed to continuing the work of listening and showing up in community, and thank you all again for the time tonight.
Thank you very much, Chelsea. Jordan Cockram.
Thank you all so much for having us tonight. This has actually been my favorite part of campaigning, has been meeting all of you and all the people that I wouldn't have gotten to meet otherwise. So my entire campaign has been about listening to people, the residents and the experts. I'm not running to push mine or anyone else's agenda. I'm not being groomed by anyone or supported by any special interests or getting thousands of dollars funneled into my campaign from outside of West Hollywood. We do have an identity politics problem here. It doesn't matter if you're the first something or the second something or the third something. We want people on city council who care and want to do and want to help the city, not use it as a stepping stone for higher office or to push their own motives. That's why I'm running, because I care and I want my neighbors and the residents to be happy, because that's what makes me happy. If you haven't yet, please reach out to me. You can find my number, my cell phone number, or my email on my website, just jordanforweho.com. I would love to hear from you. Thank you guys so much.
Jordan, thank you. Robert Oliver.
Thank you. Thank you to our hosts and to our moderator. We've covered a lot of important topics tonight, but just for a few seconds each. I think it's important that we continue this conversation. I welcome anybody who'd like to. Please reach out. My cell phone number is 818-621-9082. And my website's robert4weho.com. There are changes that I've seen as a 10-year resident here and an LA native that I don't like, and decisions that I've made in the last 2 years that I don't agree with. But let's be honest. The problems that we're seeing, the regional issues that we're seeing, are not the product of the last 2 years. Housing affordability, homelessness, public safety, our transportation infrastructure, traffic in this city. That is the result. These are the results of years, decades of decision making. So to blame the current council, I think, is a little, it's short-sighted. We need new solutions. We need new leadership. As I've mentioned, I've got experience in local government. I've dedicated my career and life to public service, and I hope that I can earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Ben Savage.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you, Rabbi Egger. Thank you, Dylan. And thank you all so much for being here. I just want to say that I'm enormously proud to live in this city. I value the diversity. I value the culture. I value the people. There's brilliant people here. They're creative, they're passionate, they're intelligent, they want to do the right thing. But I think we've lost touch with city council, and respectfully, I don't think the answer is to go backwards. I think the answer is to go forward and work with leaders, new, fresh leaders who will continue to protect the city and will protect future generations, our seniors, our renters, our long-term residents. I want to keep this city safe. I want my neighbors to sleep well at night. I want my family to sleep well at night. And I think we need to cultivate and protect and promote leaders that are going to fight for this city. I'm not a politician. I'm a long-term community member who loves this city and wants to do right for it. I have no special interest supporting me except myself, because I believe that much in this city and I want to keep it safe and I want to watch it grow because I'm proud to live here. Thank you.
Ben, thank you. Mr. Martin.
Well, I want to thank the Temple for doing this, and this was a great event. You know, if I was endorsed by one of the current incumbents, I would be asking you, yeah, you know, it's not their fault. But it is their fault. And they have led us on a real path of divisiveness, and they haven't listened to the residents. I have a very grassroots campaign. My campaign is supported by neighborhood leaders across the city. And I have support all over the city. You can tell that by my signs. But I want to be back on city council to give you a voice that you've been deprived of way too long, not just the last 2 years. So anyway, thank you again.
Thank you so much, Steve. Lauren Meister.
Thank you. And I'm really glad that you brought up the whole theme of dysfunction. I think that one thing, since I'm mayor, I'm no drama. I'm the no drama mayor, and I have to be honest, City Hall loves that I'm the no drama mayor. And I think that the residents do too. And I think the residents know that I'm an independent voice. I mean, you can ask John Heilman and John Duran on council, who were on council with me, that I was always an independent voice, and that's why I think I have the resident support. I can tell you that I was endorsed by DFI, that's the Democrats for Israel. I can tell you I was endorsed by the West Hollywood Democratic Club, West Hollywood Beverly Hills Democratic Club. But the truth is I've really been endorsed by the residents of this city. With all the money that I've raised, which has been about $85,000, 85% of it have come from residents. They've come from residents and small businesses of West Hollywood. And I think that speaks for itself. I want to thank Rabbi Egger for this. I want to thank Dylan, Elsa, we really appreciate it. And thank all of you for being here and all of you at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Meister. John Heilman.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting this, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. I love the city of West Hollywood with the drama, with the problems. I dedicated 36 years of my life to this city, and I want to make sure we get back to basics. And I'm one of the few candidates up here who actually has a track record. A number of people have talked about problems, but in terms of housing, I'm the one who drafted the rent control ordinance. I'm the one who established the housing corporation that builds permanently affordable housing. I'm the one who adopted the inclusionary ordinance that requires developers to set aside 20% of the housing for low and moderate income residents. I'm the one who established the whole network of social services funding. I'm the one who helped initiate the climate action plan. So all of the issues that have been talked about, I've had a leadership role in making those issues arise and making those programs and policies get adopted. In terms of public safety, I have a long track record of working in partnership with the sheriffs to bring down crime and address the problems in our community, and I would ask for your support.
John, thank you. And finally, Zakiya Wright.
So we have a really important, big decision that we get to make. We're deciding today, by November 8th, what the future of the city will be. We get to decide who's going to make those decisions, who's going to be at the helm, who's going to respect your interests, and who's going to represent the things that you want. And I can tell you that I'm committed to making sure that conversations like these are a regular part of my term when I'm in office, because it's not enough for me to say I want this to happen, because I have 4 other people that I'll have to convince. It's important to me to say this is what community is saying and mean it, because I've spoken with you all. I would love to continue the dialogue. You can learn more about me at writeforweho.com. I won't give up my cell number, but if you talk to me, I will, because this is broadcast. But anyways, thank you for this. Thank you for tonight. This has been amazing. I've enjoyed the conversation. I've enjoyed the attentiveness, because this is what it's about. The civic engagement, showing up, being present. We have to do it in order to make our democracy better. So thank you.
Zakiya, thank you. I would like to personally thank all the candidates for allowing me to spend some time with you tonight. I've enjoyed learning about all of you leading up to tonight's forum. And thank you so much for trusting me to ask the questions and to listen to what you have to say. I also want to thank Rabbi Egger and Congregation Kol Ami, and of course Dylan and ICANN for allowing me to be here tonight as well and to serve as your moderator. I humbly thank you so much, and I wish all of you the best. Thank you for being here tonight. If you're in-house, thank you for being here, and for those of you at home watching, streaming, thank you too. Everyone, have a wonderful night.